My name is Audrey Edmunds, and I currently reside in Minnesota. But 17 years ago this month, I was pregnant with my third daughter. We were currently in the process of moving to Minnesota. I had 2 children of my own. I had one other young gal that was 2 years old that I did daycare for part-time, and also an infant who was 7 months old at the time. Her name was Natalie, and she came to my house on a Monday morning. She was very fussy. She was always a fussy baby, but I tended to her and knew how to take care of her well and what she could and couldn't be around because she was very sensitive to many things. So it was a Monday morning, and she came to my house. Her mother brought her to my house around 7:15, and she was real fussy, and her mom said she'd been up crying twice during the night, and the previous Thursday she had taken her to the doctor and was had her on an antibiotic for ear infection. So her mom stayed with her a while, and she continued to fuss, and I told her I'd feed her bottle because she had not taken her bottle that morning at home as she normally did. So as I was trying to feed Natalie her bottle and she continued to fuss, as I held her in my arms, I had 3 other kids at my table then also. And Natalie fussed, and it was time for me to get the other kids ready as I was meeting 2 neighbor moms with their kids, and we would walk our kids to a preschool that morning. This was a ritual we did. So I finally decided, since Natalie wasn't taking her bottle well, I would put her in a car seat in the master bedroom on the same level as the rest of us were in the house to try to help console her, and I thought maybe she would suck a little and fall asleep. So I gently put her into the master bedroom, went on in her car seat, propped up enough that I could prop a bottle under her. And about 20 minutes later, when I went in to get her to take her then on our walk with the other children, she was fussy just a tiny bit when I walked in the room. Her bottle was on the floor off to the side. I thought nothing of it at the time. I put her jacket on the floor, and as I started to put her second arm in, she had formula coming out of her mouth, out of her nose, I'm sorry. And at that point, I just instantly figured something was wrong, so I picked her up and I patted her, and I thought she would start crying, and I was getting no response, and it took me a few seconds to realize something was wrong with this infant. So holding her upright, I zipped through the house on foot, went into the front yard, screamed for one of my neighbor friends to come down. She came down. I started telling her what had happened, and she said, call 911. I was still holding Natalie upright. I took her into the house. I called 911. They told me what to do and how to give her CPR, so I did exactly what they were doing. A couple police officers soon arrived. Then the EMTs arrived. I had no clue. I thought it was my fault that she had choked, that something was terribly gone wrong because I had left her with this bottle. Well, as the day progressed, I went to the hospital late afternoon. I was unable to see the baby, but I did talk to her mother. I asked them to please keep me informed as to what the outcome was. I was expecting for her to get back to normal and be fine. Well, unfortunately, it didn't happen that way, and the next morning I had phone calls and visits from my pastor late morning to find out that Natalie had passed away that night. I went to the funeral of the baby on Thursday, Friday of that week. I had asked questions by investigators that week. Everybody told me that everything that they were putting me through, talking to me, was just normal for this type of an event. So I felt fine. I was very cooperative. I answered questions. I told them everything they needed to know. I showed them anything they had questions about. And this happened in October, and then in January I found out that they thought, due to retinal folds in her eyes and a subdural hematoma in her head, that was symptoms of shaken baby syndrome, and I was being charged of first-degree reckless homicide for the death of this child. In March then, the following year, I was charged. I was just devastated. I could not believe it. It was so foreign to me because I was a stay-at-home mom, did things with my church, my family, my friends. I was certainly not perfect, but I had no clue what the judicial system was going to throw at me. And then that following November, I went to trial, and after 8 days and a whole bunch of medical testimony and things that I couldn't even try to understand, I was found guilty of first-degree reckless homicide. That following February, 2 days after my youngest daughter's first birthday, I was sentenced in Dane County, Madison, Wisconsin, to 18 years of incarceration, 12 years maximum.
18 years?
That's correct, which would have been 12 years maximum at the time because truth in sentencing wasn't in place at the time. So I was in handcuffed, taken off to the county jail. I did one night there, totally a blur as to what in the world was going on with my life, petrified, scared. The next day, I was fortunate, I find in hindsight, to go right to the state penitentiary in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and I had no clue where that was, what was going on. And then my life in a very cold hellhole started, as I did 3 years in the maximum building, and then I did 6 more years in a medium building at the maximum facility, and my last 2.5 years I did at a minimum facility. During these times, I went right to the District Court of Appeals with an appellate attorney. Our attempts at a new trial there did not succeed. Then we went on to the District Court of Appeals. That did not succeed. We went on to the state and federal levels. We were not successful in any of those. And while I was working with my attorney on the federal appeal, I was contacted by the Innocence Project at UW-Madison, Wisconsin Law School, as they had heard about my case from a neurologist at the University of Madison Hospital, and he told them that this was wrongfully diagnosed. So after my federal appeal did not bring me relief, that is when the Innocence Project in Madison started working on my case, compiling an abundant wealth of information, many doctors with new medical evidence, a change of evidence, a change of opinion, and based on new medical and scientific evidence that brought me to January and February of 2007 when we were able to present our new medical evidence. But at that time, I had to go back in front of the trial judge. He did not grant me a new trial. I was devastated. We went on to the District Court of Appeals. Everything was filed with them between us and the prosecution by December of 2007. And in January of 2008, I found out that I was granted relief, a new trial, and I was released in the first week of February of 2008. Yes, but I did 11 years then, and very, very grateful that it was out. And then after different contemplations between us and the prosecution that July, the case was dismissed, the charge was dropped, and I was exonerated due to medical and scientific evidence. Yes.
Here's the thing. I mean, I think sometimes they're worried about lawsuits or something. I mean, I have met Audrey. She is one of the nicest people I've ever met. Someone that wouldn't hurt a fly. I still can't believe how you came out of this with no anger.
Well, it's not always easy. My frustration is that the prosecution still does not want to admit that the medical and scientific evidence does not hold up their original charge. But I can't be angry. I'm so fortunate for the great steps that are being taken in the legal, medical, and scientific communities to show more and more progress that shaken baby syndrome, we don't even know if it exists right now. The original doctor that put this together in 1971 came forth last June of 2011 and said that the triad of symptoms that he swore upon in 1971 no longer hold true because of new medical and scientific evidence. And that is just great progress. And that's what I have to keep focused on. It wasn't easy being in prison. You know that, Allison. It's a very, very tough situation. And being a mom from those many miles away from my children, I was 4.5 and 5 hours away.
Oh, my God.
And it was a very different lifestyle for me then, and you just had to keep moving forward. And I was always very thankful. I always had legal representation helping me, and I continued to hope. And as it moved along and more new medical factors and information came through, it helped. But it just takes the judges to stand against political action and do what's right to implement the truth in these cases. And that's what was so devastating in hindsight. They didn't want truth. They wanted blame, as they do in many cases that we see with exonerees. We see that in so many cases with exonerees. And I speak for myself and everybody else that we've met and those that I haven't met. We've all had some really tough trials, and thankfully the victory has happened.
I don't even think they're worried about lawsuits. I think they're just worried about money, power, and control. Because I wouldn't sue. I just want to be free. You know what, Audrey? I want my life back.
Yes. Well, we can't go backwards, that's for sure, but we certainly don't want to have this hovering over us anymore. And I don't know if it's about lawsuits. Many states have some real good compensation programs and laws for this. Unfortunately, Wisconsin doesn't have much right now. They're working on one that would be retroactive. And I said it's not all about money. It's just that getting more and more people to have to thoroughly investigate cases like mine, yours, many of these other cases where we've seen wrongful convictions happen that have just been slopped together and not done correctly. And I think that's where there has to be more accountability with these people that can just not even do their job truthfully, but just do it for blame. And that's just not right in any job, let alone those that are affecting our lives so dramatically.
The Innocence Project is one of the best things that ever happened in my life.
Yes, they're wonderful, all over the country.
Ziva, I will name Bill Clutter is awesome in Illinois. Mm-hmm. I have to name a couple names. Going to the conventions, Julie Ray Harper, is one. And it just doesn't happen to be DNA.
Right.
Ron Ziney, yes, he's one of my very good friends.
Good.
And it's some people get off after 35 years from DNA.
Yes. Oh, my heart just breaks for some of these people that have put in double plus my time. And it was brought up. I don't recall if you were at the recent convention in
Kansas City
last March, and it was stated then that non-DNA cases now are almost as high, almost 50% as are the regular DNA cases. Medical and scientific cases with new evidence are almost as high now as DNA, which is wonderful.
47%.
Yes, that the courts are seeing these, that they're recognizing these things.
I wrote that down.
Very, very good. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
That is terrific news. So there's a lot of hope for others, and my heart goes out to in any other wrongfully convicted people. They say that the prison system is 10% at least not guilty people, and that just crushes my heart because we know we've been there, and it's very, very hard.
And, I read articles, and I go to P.F. Chang's, and I see 45 cops eating at P.F. Chang's.
Oh, gosh.
In Phoenix, Arizona, on Sheriff Joe's bill.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there going, huh? That's like $45, $45 times 45 cops. It's not Dunkin' Donuts anymore.
Right.
It's
Audrey,
money.
Audrey, what I really admire about you is that, somebody's been through such a horrible experience and has gone back and helped other people, got on with their lives, got on with your life, and I find it very inspiring. How do you manage to do that? Do you have any advice for somebody that clearly that many people who have been exonerated are in a terrible fit of depression right now? What did you do to get back on your feet?
I have to keep my faith. I have to look at the good side and be thankful that I'm out, I'm not on paper, that I have a lot of great support, and I look at the support and the progress that's being taken in not just shaken baby cases, but many other wrongful convictions, that more and more legal people and authorities are moving forward and seeing these things are wrong. There's more accountability. There still has to be a lot. And it's not easy. I don't have a house to live in. I don't live with my children. There's a lot of things that have changed drastically in my life, and it can be pretty tough, but I have to try to look at the bright side of things and not let it destroy you, because as in any types of tough situations, the loss of a loved one, an accident, somebody getting a devastating illness, whatever it may be, it can destroy you if you let it, and I don't want it to. But yes, it's been a big change in my life, that's for sure.
Audrey, I got to ask you a question. People, Americans, think that when you're wrongfully accused, you walk out of prison, and you're innocent, exonerated, expunged, you automatically get like $30 million from the government, and we don't.
Not at all. I paid over $100,000 for attorney fees and other fees, and I mean it's a priceless. It's not all about money, but it is incorrect that many of us have not been compensated to help us get our feet on the ground. We've lost our home value, we've lost our pension, we've lost job status, we've lost family. Rent, those things aren't replaceable with money, but something to help us have a comfortable lifestyle is not asking too much, because we didn't choose to let this happen to us. We were framed, and that's what happened.
Yep. And
framed and blamed.
That's why we don't get angry. And people like Laura Caldwell that writes books.
Oh, she's wonderful.
David, I told you I'd bring Laura up.
Wonderful.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
Bill Clutter.
Yes.
Ziva. And there's many others in the Innocent Project that I will. They can't get money out. They work for free too.
Yeah, they do a lot of work, and thankfully more and more are getting decent-sized grants to keep them going. And then a lot of them have students on staff, and I don't know if they're paid much, but what great experience for them. The students that worked with me over the 4.5 years were just wonderful, and I think it's a great opportunity for them. And all these people just have their hearts in it for truth and righteousness, and that's what's a blessing, is we're not being defeated. We're not just a small 2% cause in this world. It's getting bigger and bigger, and thankfully there is more and more attention being given to wrongfully convicted people.
It's $6,000 per arrest, per false arrest. And they can do whatever they want. They can say whatever they want.
Yeah, isn't that sad?
Well, Heather Kirkwood is an attorney, and she has specialized in addressing shaken baby syndrome, which means she's kind of stretched her abilities, because trained in law, and she's had to learn quite a bit about medical science. And you've defended a number of women that have been jailed. In fact, we interviewed one last week. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to this conclusion? Because I understand at the beginning you felt very differently about it, that you assumed that most of the people that were accused of shaken baby syndrome were probably child abusers, and over a period of time it looks like your paradigm has turned completely upside down. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, well, actually, I'm not a criminal lawyer. I was an antitrust lawyer, RICO, securities fraud, things like that. My daughter-in-law's brother had been convicted of, actually, it was a sexual assault case of raping his 3-year-old daughter. And my daughter-in-law asked me to look at it, and I said, well, there's only 2 ways to go here. Either he's innocent, as they felt, in which case he should rejoin the family, or he's guilty, in which case we need to keep our children far away. He was on probation rather than in prison. So I did that case and learned a great deal about the criminal justice system. I basically sent the materials out to people on both sides of the issue and got all of the reports back, I didn't have them write reports, I spoke with them, but the conclusion was that he was innocent, but actually the evidence that was used to convict him established his innocence rather than his guilt. That was a bit of a surprise to me. I did get that conviction overturned, and I resumed my commercial work until the same daughter-in-law came up with another case.
Perhaps we should interview him on another show.
Pardon? Yes.
Right. Your son-in-law, was it, or brother-in-law? Your brother-in-law.
It was my daughter-in-law's brother.
Okay.
So she came up with another case. She didn't know the person, but a number of people in Amarillo felt that he was innocent. Oh, my heavens, that's my phone, sorry. Anyways, a number of people thought that he was innocent, and she wondered if I would take a look at it. Other people had asked also to have me help. She'd always said no. I looked at that case, a summary of the research basis for shaken baby syndrome, so I could take my autopsy report and compare that to the research-based findings in shaken baby syndrome. He took 3 months to do it. I was furious. I thought it should take 3 weeks. But at the end of 3 months, he turned over a large pile of material to me and said, there is no research basis for shaken baby syndrome. And my response was $100,000 on an Oxford education, and he can't find the research basis for shaken baby syndrome. I want my money back. But in any event, I redid the work. I walked down the same path that he had walked down, and I reached the same conclusion. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It means that there's no research basis for it. There are lots of things that may exist, but there's no research basis to support them. So that was a predicament in which I found myself. I had a case in which I had hoped that I could simply play concentration, basically, look at the research basis, look at the autopsy report. Does it match? Does it not match? And that was not what I found myself in. So that was the Ernie Lopez case. That was on Frontline maybe a year or so ago. He is out now, although they're still planning to retry him. So I don't know where they're going to go on that or what's going to happen next.
Well, that must have been a big shock for you when you went from a field of law where essentially the law is the law, securities exchange and in corporate law and that sort of thing. And probably not stating this correctly, but then to suddenly go into criminal law where you find that in fact often things are not done the way you would think they would be done. There seems to be a denial of due process. There seems to be times when the defendant is not allowed discovery, when expert witnesses are not allowed in the defense's case. That really changes your paradigm, doesn't it?
Well, it does. I went in thinking that the prosecutors would be interested in learning new information because I was essentially an antitrust prosecutor. I was a senior attorney for the Federal Trade Commission. I was a lead attorney on the Bookseller case and other cases. So I was always happy to receive new information because your only job as a prosecutor is to get it right. There's no other job. That's your responsibility. So I was surprised in this area that there doesn't always seem to be that same sense of getting it right and that your obligation is to the taxpayers.
That's sad, isn't it?
It is very sad.
How can we get our courts back? How can we get the prosecutors and the judges and and the court officials to honor their oath of office. After all, they took an oath of office. They raised their hand and they said, "I swear I will uphold the Constitution. I will defend your constitutional rights." Whatever happened to that? Where does their loyalties now? It seems to be in increasing their prosecution ratio. You often hear prosecutors bragging that they have a 98% prosecution rate. There seems to be a lot of
I hope that
competition there.
I hope that means that they are choosing their cases well. It could mean that. I don't know where you begin. There are certainly really good prosecutors. I sat down with a prosecutor down in Pierce County, actually, and explained the case to him, and he went in and did a better job arguing for the woman who was accused than her own attorney did. He was very interested in the material. So there are some. We had an excellent one here in Seattle for quite a while, Norm Nailing, whom everybody misses. So there are good prosecutors. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because they are elected, that so many, or they see themselves as the good guys versus the bad guys, and they have trouble differentiating between good guys and bad guys. I really don't know. I do think, though, that discovery is a very major issue. We have very good rules, the Brady rules, for turning over exculpatory information, but there are very few punishments for not following those rules. I think that's a problem.
What kind of punishments do you think would be appropriate if Brady rules are not followed?
I personally think civil rights suits, 1983. I've only brought one 1983, and I actually did try to include the prosecutor in that after I learned that they had received exculpatory information and had withheld it. And that was denied. It's still an appealable issue, but I think it would make them sit up and take notice.
Yeah, funny how that seems to happen way too often. I think you're absolutely right. I think if there were a few prosecutors or a few judges that were actually prosecuted, then that would send a very strong signal to the legal community, would it not?
One of my cases was a warfarin overdose. They were accused of murdering their daughter. It was, in fact, a warfarin dose, a prescription error. And I know that I asked the warfarin expert, I said, well, I don't, is this new information? Was this not known, that warfarin was as dangerous? And she said, oh, no, it's been known since the 1920s. And I said, well, why is it suddenly getting a black box warning? Why are there all these warnings out there now? And she said, I hate to say it, but it's lawsuits. That's what changed things. And I don't like lawsuits particularly. I'm not litigious myself. I rarely file suits, but sometimes it does seem to be what makes things happen.
Mm-hmm. But the court officials, the judges and the prosecutors, seem to be essentially insulated from any consequence from their wrongdoing. In my view, there's such thing as natural law, and under any system of natural law, whether it was from ancient Ireland or from Africa, if somebody is wealthy and powerful and they have great benefit from their position and they have a great, and they also have the ability to harm people in a significant way. If somebody like that abuses their power and harm somebody, then their punishment is twice what some poor insignificant individual who sells marijuana on the street or whatever. In this world, it's completely turned upside down. It is the helpless ones that end up getting prosecuted and serving long sentences, and the ones that are powerful and wealthy that seem to be completely insulated from the results of their actions.
I can't disagree on many counts.
Well,
Okay.
can I just step in for a second? Like the nice Audrey's, or say myself, when you're wrongfully arrested, wrongfully accused, it triggers off on family members. And cost taxpayers so much money. Not millions. It goes into more than millions. And kids are affected. Children are affected. And this is intentional effect of torts. This is not right.
That's right. It seems to affect virtually everybody. I mean, who has not been touched
by friends, family, people lose houses. I think Audrey mentioned a really good point. She lost her house. She lost her family over something that she did not do. Some of us are victims of a bad cop, a bad, I have proof, dispatch. In a very different case, I fought. I went to the media and won. Totally different case. We have to fight the prosecutors like Terry L. Clark, Judge McVeigh, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, that puts people in tents at 143 degrees in Tent City. That's sick. It's county jail. And I'll get my 2 cents in. It's 0 degrees in the winter. Do you know how many people die waiting for medical attention? I mean, they're not even, they haven't seen a judge yet. They might have run a yellow light. You can't, the hearing judge